first at 10 tonight. It is another night in another year, but still very much the same.
Yeah, flooding frustration still resonating in areas including this one along Clark Creek near Baraboo. The damage removed, but many families still looking for an answer to their flooding problem. News 3's Andy Choi joining us live. He is in our news center. Has much more on this story tonight. Andy?
You know, last August, we trudged through the undulating hills of Clark Creek to find out how to fix its notorious flooding problem. Several months later, residents say that question still remains. The bubbling sounds of Clark Creek, tucked alongside the Baraboo River, is a deceiving display of serenity.
Last year, a year ago today, the creek had come down, had gone basically from tree line to the neighbor's shed here.
Last year, Judd Maxwell showed us why June's floods turned the creek into a raging tunnel of water, trees, and debris. He wanted a solution. Today, the story remains fairly unchanged.
There's a 300-foot elevation increase going up this way. And from this bend on up, nothing's been done.
Since the floods, the DNR has placed plunge pools along the creek's lower end as a short-term solution.
The intent is to try and improve conveyance. In other words, make sure that higher flows during minor flood events will pass through the drainage structures.
Looks are deceiving. We've seen this 5 times before, and there's not one of us from this point down to the river that'll say this is the answer. It just isn't.
What we're in dire need of is to get this creek rerouted where it's supposed to go and get it down 5 to 6 foot deep.
Residents like Gordon Jensen say it's been a year of frustration after the help slowly disappeared.
I guess what bothers me is you read in the papers that there's money coming in for this, money coming in for that, and yet we always seem to fall through the crack.
But like many of the families along Clark Creek, Maxwell says he's not going anywhere.
I grew up here. I'm not going anywhere. You know, you told me last year, why don't you just move? Easier said than done. I'll be here forever.
Maxwell says what really needs to happen is to have work done along the higher points of the creek. The DNR says making that a reality will be tough as funding sources after the economic downturn dried up faster than that creek bed all since June's floods, guys.
Any other options for these residents here, Andy?
Not too much, Eric. They tell me awareness of the problem is the best they could do right now. Some have just left the area and started over, but as Maxwell points out, these are places rich in family history.
Yeah.
You bet.
All right, News 3's Andy Choi live in the news center. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.